That sounds good, Mike. I think that sounds like a.
Are we good? Uh-oh. I would loan you mine, but then I won't see anything either.
Now we're ready.
All right. All right. Good evening, everyone. We're just having so much fun up here. We don't really want to start the meeting yet. I'd like to call to order tonight's school board meeting of June 27th. Tonight, Mrs. Almond has the invocation and pledge.
What is the meaning of the 4th of July? Independence Day of the United States, also referred to as the 4th of July or July 4th in the U.S., is a federal holiday commemorating the adoption of the Declaration of Independence 241 years ago in 1776 by the Continental Congress. Why do we use fireworks on the 4th of July? Because John Adams wanted us to. Before the Declaration of Independence was even signed, he envisioned fireworks as part of the festivities. The first commemorative Independence Day fireworks were set off on July 4th, 1777. So why is Independence Day important and why celebrate? Because imperfect though this country and its form of society may have been and will ever be, the signing of this document was an act of progress with resounding historical significance. In declaring their independence and in advancing philosophical and legal reasons for separation, the 13 United States of America, with the entire Western world watching, clearly and succinctly asserted a radical but compelling principle of government. Governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. A government does not properly rule over people, it serves under them. Thomas Jefferson and the American States United asserted that governments are instituted as humanity's representative, advocate, and servant, and exist to defend our equality before the law and our equal right derived from the nature as human beings to live our lives free from oppression by others, and happily pursue our separate interests in peace and civil society. Please stand and join me in reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Almond. Tonight, our school board meeting, we have 4 of our 5 school board members represented, Dr. Griffin, and I always look at your face and I want to say your first name, which is completely inappropriate for me to do and unprofessional, so I'll say Mrs. Beeman, now that you all have fed it to me. Thank you. And we have Ms. Moramis here as our clerk. Also tonight I want to acknowledge Patty DeLucia, Seminole County Council PTA is here tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate all that you do for our students and glad that you came out tonight to be with us even during the summer. Thank you. Let's see, do we have any agenda modifications, Dr. Griffin?
Yes, Madam Chair, there are 2. The first, the addendum for good cause is marked on our electronic agenda by a green flag named addendum item. And then, board members, I have an item I'm going to pull. It's the 4C renewal, which in your board book is item 4AM, and it begins on page 284. And specifically, when we're going back to take another look at the land lease fees and the utility fees. So I'll probably bring this back in the July meeting.
School board members, do you have any modifications? Mrs. Sanchez, I think you're first tonight.
No, ma'am.
Right, Dr. Calderon?
No, ma'am.
Mrs. Almond?
No modifications, thank you.
And I do not have any either. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda outline?
So moved.
Motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right. We have some presentations and some recognitions tonight.
Yes, we do.
Well, good afternoon, Dr. Griffin and school board members. I would like to recognize our 2017 National Distinguished Principal. This program honors outstanding elementary and middle level administrators who ensure that children acquire a solid foundation for lifelong learning and achievement. The program was established in the 1980s to recognize and celebrate principals who set high standards for instruction, student achievement, character, and climate for the students, families, and staff in their learning communities. I would like to present to you the 2017 National Distinguished Principal, and there's only one principal chosen out of 50 states. I'm honored to introduce to you Dr. Margaret Gunderson. And joining her tonight is her husband, Mr. Gunderson. If you would wave, Mr. Gunderson, thank you for coming.
Board members, I'd like to introduce to you tonight a new assistant principal being hired for Midway Elementary, Mr. Dave Harris, if you'll please come up. Mr. Harris is spending his 13th year in education. He's a proud graduate of the University of Florida. He taught at the middle school. He taught at the middle school grade levels 6 to 8 for 10 years. As a math and science teacher, he then became an instructional coach at Rhymes Early Learning and Literacy Center and later at Oak Park Middle School. Prior to accepting this position, he was an instructional dean at Oak Park Middle School. Family members in attendance at the board meeting with him tonight are wife Anna Harris, if you would please stand, son Emmanuel Harris, father Joseph Harris, sister Janice Bragdon, brother Hayden Harris, sister-in-law Stephanie Harris, and nephew Darnell Harris. Congratulations.
Board
board members, I'd like to introduce another new assistant principal for elementary school, and that is Melissa Neese, new assistant principal at Lair Elementary School. Melissa has been a PE teacher, and this last year she was the SAM at Lair, and she graduated with an educational specialist degree in educational leadership from UCF in 2015. With her tonight is her principal, Cheryl Nicholas, her husband, Michael Neese, her son Connor, and her daughter, Olivia. And then also with her is a friend, Ms. Ramkasoon, the principal at Rainbow, and her two sons here to cheer her on. So congratulations, Melissa. And would all of you stand up, please, and be recognized?
Board members, we have two presentations this evening. The first one is just a quick overview of our FSA spring assessment results. And the second will be just the latest update on the middle school science. I want you to hear everything that I'm hearing because we're going to get asked questions because it's different, it's changed. So turn it over to our assessment and accountability folks.
Hi, I'm Xiangwei Xu, a performance data analyst from Assessment Accountability.
And I'm Caitlin Tripany.
So here we just have a brief review of the 2017 state assessment results. The data here is not school grade data. So spring results included all the students that are tested at the school during the test administration. So school, and we also call accountability data, only includes full-year enrolled students who are at the districts in Survey 2, which is October window, and Survey 3, which is a February window. So there is a discrepancy there. So from this slide, so from this slide, as you see, Seminole County Public School is ranked either the first or tied first or the second across all subjects, across all school grade, across all grade level in the Central Florida districts and, yeah, the 6 Central Florida. Is this the, no. Yeah. Okay. Here is showing the rankings among the Central Florida and the 17 largest districts. So as you see, we ranked either the first or tied first or the second across all subjects and all grade levels. In the 17 largest districts, except the 5th grade math and 8th grade math, we also ranked either the first or tied first or second. And for 8th grade math, the next slide will show you our 8th grade students' participation and performance. So as this slide, the last column, percentage EOC test takers, this data tells us in Seminole County Public School, we have 50% of our 8th graders took EOC math tests instead of FSA math. So it's among the 20 largest districts, we are one of the highest in all math subjects. So in FSA math, percentage level 3 and above, algebra 1 and geometry percentage level 3 and above, we outperform all the rest of the largest districts, which is 51 percentage level 3 and above in FSA math, 92 percentage level 3 and above in algebra 1, and 100 all kids level 3 and above in geometry. So we have one of the highest proportion of our 8th grade students took the EOC and also outperformed the rest of the districts. Here's the ranking for the EOC subjects. So as the other subjects, Seminole County Public School ranked either the first or second in all Central Florida districts, and also in 17 larger districts, except the Algebra 2. We ranked the third.
Okay, now we're just going to review our performance for the last 2 years. So you can see through grades 3 through grades 10, we made improvements in all grade levels in 2017 compared to 2000.
That's a beautiful slide. Yeah. Kudos to our teachers.
So we
Look at
like to
that.
see. And then in math, in the majority of subjects, we did continue to make improvements. A few subjects were about the same as last year. This slide also includes grades 3 through 8 FSA, as well as Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2.
In case anybody's listening, what board member wants to talk about 8th grade math? Why are those scores like that? That's right. We have a lot of that. Just put them in previous slide. We have so many kids enrolled in Algebra 1. So our top math students are taking a high school course.
And they're not counted in there. Right.
This slide shows our statewide science exam in grade 5 and 8, as well as our biology EOC exam, which all remained about the same as last year. Lastly, this is our social studies, civics, and U.S. history EOCs, which performance, again, remained about stable for the last 2 years. Any questions?
Madam Chair, I have one question. I was looking at the math in 5th grade, and I noticed that statewide we have dropped. Do you have any feeling of why it did that? Or
once we receive the school grade data, we're going to do some more in-depth analysis on all math performance. So we should have some more information once that is released.
As a teacher of 5th grade math and Go Math series, I feel it jumps quite a bit from 4th grade to 5th grade in the skills, and the benchmarks do not align properly, and the kids tend to struggle. And I don't know if that's something that's statewide, but when we were up in Tallahassee, we were also talking about the Go Math series and having it not being aligned properly with our curriculum. So I just want to make note to that.
Overall, math is a concern for us, and we're doing our retreat with our deep dive, and math is one of our subjects, and we'll be briefing. The board members are invited to the end of the 2 days of the deep dive, and we'll be talking in detail about math because we have some concerns. Really, it's a K through 12 concern, looking at growth and gains. We've been meeting with groups of the principals, groups of 10 to 12, and especially elementary. They have some concerns and some solutions. So I think every year we have to flip the data and work on something. But as a former math teacher, we've got to have good math scores. Yeah.
Ladies, Madam Chair, I was wondering from year to year, we're testing different students. FSA, I still don't think is a valid and reliable test to our standards. And from year to year, since we don't even get to know what the questions are, we don't know if it's a harder test or an easier test. So what percentage point, when you see the difference between year to year, or perhaps you haven't done the study yet, makes that standard deviation or the statistical significance and change? Is there any way that we can account for that when we don't have the information about the FSA?
The DOE does do analysis to make sure the tests are supposed to be approximately the same difficulty from year to year. Don't necessarily release all of that information, but other than that, we don't have a lot of information about that. In general, a 1 to 2 percentage point on either side is about stable in terms of.
Let me add, I think, when you look at the math test, the 5th graders, maybe the readability of the 5th grade test is the problem. We don't get to see it, so we don't know. So it may not be a mathematical issue as much as it is a reading issue. So we have we're going to try to dig in and figure it out, but that's why we look at the other data. We triangulate all the time. we're showing you this because this is what we got in, but this district is not just about FSA. We're looking at every metric that we have to make some decisions.
Well, that's my concern because I'm not so sure if the test is aligned with the percentage of the test questions with the percentage of time that we spend on each standard, whether it be for fifth grade math or anything else. When you don't have the transparency, we are really putting our teachers in a bad position that, you know, it could just be one math concept that is, we perhaps covered in 10 minutes, and they ended up taking 20% of the math test on that one area. So I still have concerns, and I know, ladies, you do phenomenal work in your department, and I can't thank you enough for giving us the data that we need to make good decisions for the future. But without having all the facts, I think it's hard, and I just wanted to share that as good work that you're doing, when we don't get the transparency from DOE, I think our hands are tied in a lot.
We're also having an analysis done by iReady and iStation to see how, because that really is our progress monitor, to see the alignment to what actually happened on FSA. But that's a whole other metric for us to look at. And in some cases, at a quick glance, some schools were almost perfectly aligned, and some there was a huge discrepancy. So we have to figure out the difference in the use, the teacher effect, all of those pieces. So we'll have some solutions and an interesting discussion at our retreat with you about math.
I just have one more, sorry, Madam Chair. With the analysis, you know, this is like comparing apples to oranges when we're looking at the fifth grade score compared to the fourth grade. Will you have information for us of just the fifth graders and how they compared and what they did in their growth from one year to the next?
When school grades are released, they release learning gains data, and that will be a comparison for the
Super.
students.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Were the cut scores changed again this year? They weren't, so at least those stayed the same.
Correct.
Well, thanks. All favors. Where does Iowa come into play in terms of another data point? Are we looking at that as well?
Yeah, we are. That's actually with the principals, what we're doing now. Of course, Iowa is not the entire, all the grades in elementary school, but we are looking at that. iReady, even the test that we're giving ourselves, just to try to figure out really what's going on mathematically.
I echo Dr. Calderon's concerns. I think, as much as we love being first in so many areas, I always worry that we're sending a mixed message to our principals and our teachers that to focus on the scores of a test that we don't even believe is valid and reliable worries me. So I applaud you for triangulating the data and making sure that we're looking from a whole child perspective. And I mean, we could beat this to death. We talk about it all the time. Every time this comes up, it seems like we have the same conversation. But, until DOE provides or allows us to use a transparent tool, I don't know how we really can put much validity.
Yeah, I think, and why I like to put this out there a little bit, our teachers have worked really hard teaching the standards, and that's what this really is about, thanking them, because they're caught in the middle, and they appreciate what you've all done, without a doubt, at Tallahassee, trying to stop some of the madness. But Ms. Lockhart, didn't you request a copy of the test?
I did.
Yeah.
I did request a copy. I did not.
Oh, and I've requested ones numerous times and haven't received them. And when I was up in Tallahassee, they can't get them either, the legislators.
So it's interesting, and I think that's what prompted some of the discussion about putting that extra money in the budget, because the folks that created the FSA basically said, if you want to make it public, then you're going to have to pay us an additional, was it $2 million, or how many millions of dollars it was. And there was a bill that was, actually we should check on that. There was a bill that came out of committee that actually would fund that extra money to allow the FSA to be published every 3 years. They would then have to rewrite it. But I don't know where that landed with all of the vetoes.
It might be in 76, I'll have to check.
Because that would be interesting. Thank you all again so much for your work.
Thank you very much.
They do a great job crunching these numbers.
Yes, we really appreciate it.
Middle grade science. Board members, as they're working their way up, this is probably our first attempt to not purchase a textbook and have our teachers write our own curriculum.
Awesome.
So thank you to the teachers. I mean, it's just amazing. But I do know that it's different. So anytime something is different, we always have parents ask questions and so on. So I want you to hear what I've been hearing so we can all answer the questions and understand what's taking place.
So first of all, thank you for inviting us to come talk. Rachel Hallett-Chaguna, who I've been facilitating this for the past 2 years, and I've brought with me two of my fabulous teachers who have been working on this for the last 2 years as well, Adam Goodman from Markham Woods Middle School and Christy Seitz from South Seminole Middle School. So they are two of the 12 teachers who have been working very diligently on this to make sure it was ready for this coming school year. So the vision, if you recall, was to shake things up a little bit for middle school science. You saw that our performance has been pretty consistent, but we wanted to find a way to look at our standards in a new way that benefited the teachers, benefited the students, and what came out of that were the 6 integrated units, and we ended up creating a nice blended curriculum that has digital components that sort of replace the textbook, and then the other pieces that would traditionally come with hands-on and group work and all kinds of things. So it's not a digital curriculum in the sense of a virtual class, but the pieces that would have come from a textbook company are now things that we found and created and put together. So from the perspective of training for our teachers, it started about this time last year, so July of last year. Adam and a few of the teachers and I presented a preview of what we had at that point, which was a nice little skeleton. And during Power Review, I think we had 3 sessions and had probably close to 60 teachers for that. And then throughout the school year, we've had some after-school training opportunities, and we wanted to make it targeted for specific aspects of the curriculum so that teachers, whatever concerns that they had about the curriculum, they could come just for that. So we had 2 sessions on interactive notebooks, which Christy will talk about a little bit more in a few moments. And then I had 2 sessions on new content because we shuffled the content up. So now there is life science and earth in 6th grade, which never was there, and vice versa. So I wanted to give the teachers a chance to talk and really look at what was coming and feel more comfortable with the new content. And then in January, Robert Wakeland, who has been an amazing resource in developing this and taught me more than I needed to know about eCampus, helped with working through, because some of our teachers are very proficient in using eCampus and some have sort of been, like me, sort of pushed into it, and since the delivery is now fully eCampus, they had to be comfortable with it, so he did a great job on that. And he's going to have a similar session during Power Review this summer to help with teachers that are good with the science. It's the eCampus part. And then we had a technology training for some of the resources, and then during April and May, the principals allowed me to come out to every single middle school and talk with every single teacher during their planning time or during a Wednesday afternoon. I created a little spiral reference guide for them to take with them, so if they had any questions, you have, I love it, and just so that way if they needed anything afterwards. And then of course throughout the school year we had department chair meetings and PLCs and just lots of updates. We didn't want anybody to be surprised by this. And then this month, we had a week full of trainings 2 weeks ago, which were exceptionally successful, and then again during Power Review we'll have some more. So Power Review, we have almost 90 teachers signed up, which since it's just 6th and 7th grade middle school, that's almost everybody, and we had, I think it was 50 2 weeks ago come to that. And then in terms of parents, because we knew this was important as well, to let them know what was coming, starting with August of last year, they got to hear my voice, which I need to fix for narration, but I narrated a PowerPoint. It's what I hear and what it happens is different. So the school shared that through PTA and SAC. And then our marketing department did a fabulous job of creating 2 flyers. One in September went out that was for general information about the curriculum, and then the one in November was specifically for the, at that time, current 6th grade students, because those were the ones that would be affected. During this past school year, the current 7th and 8th graders weren't affected by it, so we wanted to say, I think it even said, what does this mean for my 6th grader? And then we had a district-wide meeting where parents were invited in December, and in the spring, principals went ahead and discussed and kind of got everybody caught up. So everybody's had many, many opportunities to be informed about it, so hopefully this won't be a surprise to anybody. In terms of the format, this is one of the biggest differences in terms of for our teachers. This is what the instructional plan looks like for the teachers themselves. This is what they will see. You'll see there's a little icon at the top. The orange icon is the scales, so our committee made scales for every single unit. And then the other icon at the top is the interactive science notebook, so we mocked up pages for that. Everything in here that's linked mirrors the eCampus course for the students, so the teachers can see exactly what the kids are going to see without having to go into eCampus and can make some adjustments based on this. So this is what they would use to generate their their lesson plans for their school, so they can move things around. We have some sample rubrics, some sample lessons, lots of suggestions for them. We have learning targets for everything and key questions, and you can also notice we've done some differentiation where students who don't have the concept yet can do this series of activities, and students that do know can do a separate set of activities leading into the UDL, which we know we're all trying to get to. So it sort of dips our toe in that water, and then teachers can expand as needed. And then the digital side, this is where the teachers will access this. This is the framework site that they've always used, and this is where they'll come from that information. And then the student course will look like this. So this has just been uploaded into Commons for the teachers to pull, and all of those icons are the 6 different units, and this one is particularly for 6th grade first semester, so only 3 of those icons are active, and the kids will click on it, and then the page on the right, the page on the right mirrors what you just saw with the teachers. So it has the learning goals, it has the 5E setup, at the very bottom is the standards, and one of the things it sort of started out jokingly were these images, but they've really become really important because this, especially for our ESE, ELL kids, or just kids that weren't paying close attention, they can see there's a dinosaur on my screen and everybody else has a star. Maybe I'm in the wrong place. When they access it at home or whenever they're looking at stuff, and for a teacher perspective, if I'm looking out, I can immediately see, are you on the same unit that I want you to be on, without squinting and trying to look. And it's hard to tell, but those buttons at the bottom, the Engage, Explore, Explain, those all have the dinosaur as well. So when you click on those, that becomes the top of the page, and it just helps sort of brand the units. And so they see this in 6th grade, and then in 7th grade, they see the dinosaur again, and they're just building on their knowledge. So what I would like Adam to do is talk to you about 2 of our pieces, of our digital pieces. My favorite is the Jupyter Notebooks program that he and a couple of our teachers have worked on, and then also briefly talk about assessment and how students and teachers will access that.
I think this needs to be here. As part of the CS 2020 initiative that the school board's looked at and the county's pursuing, to pursue having computer science presented to our pre-K through 8 and high school students, in conjunction with UCF, the committee has put together Jupyter Notebooks. For those of you who are not familiar with Jupyter Notebooks are basically a simplified Python coding. So it makes Python code very accessible for our students. It presents it as a markdown function, so you can see, it kind of gives text on what you should do, and it has coding blocks.
I hate to interrupt you, but you're going to have to explain what Python coding is as well.
It would be my pleasure, sorry.
I think you thought that would explain it for us. Am I alone?
Python is widely used in web development. It's used to help support software development. It's widely used in scientific computation as well as numerical analysis. So a lot of professors at UCF will use Python coding in order to crunch large data sets. The thing that's really exciting about this is this gave us the opportunity to make the CS 2020 initiative really standards aligned. So it closely follows what's being taught in every unit. I know one of the big issues with some of the past things that we had tried from a teacher perspective was having it correctly aligned in a way that made sense. And so this gave us a really good opportunity to really make things click with the kids and to pull real data sets. I know one of the most exciting things is that the data sets that kids are pulling are from NASA, they're from USGS, the EPA, the St. Johns River Water Management District. So they're getting real data, and with the Python coding, it allows it to be current. So for example, in 6th grade, students will be looking through periodic trends, the classification of organisms, Florida's water budget, and earthquake data globally. And so they can manipulate the code in order to pull in the most recent earthquakes, and they can learn about plate tectonics in that way. And it lets them work with data sets that are a real size, which I think that they really miss out on in a lot of science classes. It's very difficult to collect enough data for them to see what it's really like. Some other examples in 7th grade we looked at were erosion, the properties of stars in the carbon cycle. And these are still in development in conjunction, like I said, with UCF and Adam Lamy, who's been a huge part of getting that put together. Each notebook can be run locally on the student computers that will be in the classrooms as part of this initiative. They can also be run through Binder currently, and we were exploring the idea of being able to run it from Seminole County's servers as well. But the nice thing is, as you can see, the student worksheet or the coding booklet basically provides a guide where students can see questions that link in with the standards. It asks them to bring in prior knowledge. And typically, this is part of the last step of the 5E process, which is to elaborate. And so this is the final thing a lot of times that they'll do before they take their final summative assessment. So as they go through and they do this, they have the opportunity to take that coding booklet home, and having done the coding lesson, they can work on the questions and review what they have. So there is a paper component to this as well. Every lesson also ends with free coding or unstructured coding. So for the kids who know how to go out and look at a tutorial or who already know a little bit about this, they can go through and kind of play with the code and change colors and try different graphs and do their own analysis. So there's opportunity for enrichment for the students who are a little bit ahead, and there's opportunities for the ones who might struggle a little bit more to kind of just get introduced to the idea. With the Jupyter notebooks, I know we're still in development for some of them, but it's a wonderful opportunity for our students to really see what real scientists do. And I think as a science teacher and as a committee member, I'm thankful that Dr. Hallett has put together this opportunity for our kids. I think it's really, really exciting. Did you have any questions on the Jupyter? I hope I brought it back down.
Far enough along down the road.
Okay. In terms of our assessments with the comprehensive science curriculum, there are formative assessments built throughout, and as you were shown earlier, we are using the 5E model for science instruction, which is to engage, explore, explain, and elaborate, and all throughout that is to evaluate. Not all of these are graded, and they are part of that IP that you were shown. So teachers will have access to quizzes, exit slips, bell work, online discussion boards that they can use the class set of computers for, CPOEMS tutorials, learning games. All of those are formative assessments that are already part of the curriculum that the committee members and Rachel have put together. And also provided are summative assessments at the end of each unit, and sometimes there are 2 per unit if it made sense to kind of cut the unit. And those are optional questions teachers have the ability to pull for a bank. I know Rachel has provided those for us for a couple years now on our current curriculum, and they're very valuable and standards aligned as well. And so I think with both of these, it offers the opportunity for flexibility. Most of the assessments have options to be done digitally or on paper. Teachers can do it as they have in the past. They can pull these resources and kind of tailor make it to what works for them in their classroom.
And I was right there with you with Python when they first started. I was like, okay, good. So you guys learned that. So we have a crew of 5 teachers who have been working with UCF and who are now our little cohort of Python and Jupyter Notebook experts. So they will continue that work to help educate us all. So now, Christy, I wanted her to share a little bit about the interactive notebook piece, which is a very important non-digital part of this curriculum.
Hello, everybody. I'm Christy Seitz. Firm believer in the interactive notebook. This is like the integral piece that will be the bridge from classroom to home learning. As simple as a 70-page spiral, which costs about 19 cents, and my school does interactive notebooks throughout. So we basically need them to get 1 per semester. That's all they need. I have a sample that I will donate to Dr. Wyndham so she can have it. You can look in it. It's from one of my students this past year.
Love to see that.
But basically, I know the big concern is how are they going to do any type of home learning and review if they don't have access to computer at home? And my school's a Title I school, so I live that every day. Half of my students have access to computers and half of them don't. So basically the way the interactive science notebook works is, if you look at the diagram, technically if you do it correctly all the time, and it's very hard to follow this all the time, but the teacher gives input for the kids to enter on the right-hand side. So you would have vocabulary, you would have notes and discussion from activities and labs, and then you give them something to do at home on the left-hand side. So it's more of a reflection, open-ended questions that they can do and review what you taught them in class that day. Doesn't always work that way, but that's the way we try to keep it. So teachers write, that's the way I always remember it. Teachers gives the information on the right-hand side, and then for kids to practice, and you give them reflection type questions or a diagram to fill in or something to do on the left-hand side. Some benefits of the interactive notebook. One thing, it's very inexpensive. It's small, it'll fit in their backpack nicely. This is all they have to bring to class every day. That's it. So infusing the accountability piece, making sure that they understand that it's important. We have built-in the IP days for them to set it up. It's got to be numbered a certain way, and basically they're creating their textbook. It's like a textbook in progress. So if I have a formative assessment and I give a quiz, we can go back and we can highlight what they need to know, what pages they need to refer to, and that helps them study. So this is their textbook. And I think Rachel assigned me to this topic because I was not a fan of it at first. I thought, oh no, just one more thing. And so my testimony is I went ahead and bit the bullet and I tried it. Our school does it across the board, every subject. And I loved it. Not only did the kids take ownership and making it really pretty and entering all their notes and pictures and doodles, but it's theirs, and it was their bridge to me from home. Keeping the material, they can go back and see all that they've done throughout the whole year, and just the ownership piece is really, really important. Edutopia.org put out a fantastic article last August, and they called it Interactive Notebooks, No Special Hardware Required. It's a really, really great article. Basically, they say it's an old school interactive tool. It's basically a spiral-bound notebook set up as a simple, functional system for students to create, write, and explore ideas all in the same place. So they have their new information, they can practice, they can reflect, they can write. Science is so new to them each year. We're building. It's just a wonderful tool. It's a win-win. It's easy to grade as a teacher. As kids are doing their activity, I can see what type of quality responses they're doing, and I can stamp their page. And then in 2 weeks' time, I can collect everybody's spiral, and all I have to do is count the stamps. So I know I'm not like backed up with 6 stacks of these to go through every single page. You can also do like a scavenger hunt quiz where I can ask the kid, turn to entry 6 and tell me what you wrote for the conclusion or something like that. So if it's organized and you build that in from the beginning, they will have entry 6 and they will have the conclusion, and it's basically a little scavenger hunt quiz. So it's simple, it's inexpensive, it's easy access to the material at home. They bring it back every day and add more, and then on the teacher side, it's very easy to grade.
I love the interactive notebook idea. The information's relevant. They're not wasting time on things that you might test them on. It cuts away all the fluff, and they own it. So thank you very much.
We also have, Rachel purchased these for each school, and it just even gives you more ideas of things, which, as you can see, I use religiously because at first I wasn't a fan, but now I'm like, it's the real thing. Having us.
I can't thank you enough for your leadership. Dr. Hallett, we are going to miss you here in this building, so I'm a little concerned about sustainability. But seeing what we've already seen here tonight, Dr. Cody, I'm ready to go for all subject areas.
Don't say that it was because of me. The TOAs will hunt me down.
What you all didn't get to see while you were presenting is Dr. Cody was sitting in the audience with the biggest smile. It was like you were so proud of your children, so to speak, that I know staff how much time, talent, treasure, intelligence, tenacity that you've put into this. And I think we're going to see the fruits of your labor for years to come by seeing our next generation of kids love science. We know that's where the jobs are for our students going through school now. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
And Sean has already talked to Mr. Schreiner, and I have to be on speed dial at all times. So
okay, good.
I'm not going. I had to stay close, so I'm.
You know where you are.
Exactly. You know where to find me. I will be in the space lab, so you can find me in there. But that's the best part, is having. You can see the backup that I have. I am 100% confident that they will be able to take it and run with it, and the teachers have really owned it. And I think I've had several. The training that we did this month, say I was really doubting it, and then they saw it, and now they're excited about it. And these are teachers who have been teaching for 20 plus years, and they're seeing the potential for students.
Well, and I think you just said something that we've talked about at some of our prior board meetings about talking about our teachers who have been teaching for 20 plus years. Our teachers are our experts. And when folks in the community ask us, well, what expert did you have review that? They're right here, and the more of their talent that we can tap and showcase, the time, effort, and energy that you have put in and that you're willing to put in. I don't know how many districts have teachers that would be willing to do what you all have done. So thank you tremendously for.
That's awesome.
Right. You sure you want to go?
I know. Changed my mind. I'll give them a call. Thank you.
Any other questions?
First of all, I commend you all. Thank you so much for everything you all have done to put this together. It sounds wonderful. I'm sad. I tried to get into class. Dr. Wyndham was, we couldn't get in, and I really wanted to, but I didn't want to bother you at the last minute on the last week of school, so I didn't get a chance to do that. But it sounds fabulous with the way we're engaging our students and allowing them to elaborate and explore. The one component that I have a question on is what happens if, and this happens all the time, you see them go to their mom's house and they then have to go to their father's house and maybe they left their notebook at home. And what are we going to do with that kind of situation? Can they look at somebody else's notebook, their interactive notebook, and share, or what happens if it gets lost? I mean, that's something they're taking ownership on, and I'm like, oh,
it's a good point. We've talked about that as far as if the student loses it, what would we do? The teachers will have digital copies of all that was that little icon of all the pages, so they can share and the kids can recreate, or they can recreate from a friend. I think Christy has said the recommendation is from whatever the assessment's going to be. So maybe not from the beginning of the year, but if you're in the middle of a unit, just go back to that beginning of that unit and recreate it, and then we can worry about the rest. But they will have access to digitally all the pages that they need. And many of them, the ones that we mocked up, have sort of the answers on them, so they can just recreate it instead of having to remember what did we do for that. They're like the diagrams already filled in and things like that.
Super. Fabulous. Yes.
Prior is gone, but it's overwhelming.
Sounds like you have great plans. Awesome.
Try to think of everything.
The other question, if they require paper, or do we have extra allotments for paper that if they need?
I think most teachers during that beginning with that $250 that they get, they just go and grab dozens of because at the beginning of the year, they're, like you said, 10 cents, 19
cents. Or any
cents.
Xerox paper copies that you need, or everything's in the interactive
As far as
notebook?
actual printing?
Right.
It was actually funny because that was something that we thought was going to be an issue, but as we went through, the stuff that you would have printed, you're still printing, and the stuff that was in the book is now digital. So on balance, you're pretty much the same amount of printing.
Awesome.
Yeah, and because that was I even warned the assistant principals and principals, you're going to need to make more printing, but as we went through, it didn't become that an issue.
So I'm happy to hear that. And then if they have a shutdown on their computer, computer at home or you at school, let's say our internet's down, what do you do?
That's funny because this coming school year is the last year of our adoption. So we have on campuses the textbook.
Perfect.
So that's going to sort of be our backup plan, that we have extra copies of them, and we'll just say, okay, for today, we're going to go grab the sixth grade book,
everything.
and we're going to rip out a page, and it just worked out. At first, I was like, no, they don't need the books, and then I thought, well, there are those days where eCampus is down, or if you have a substitute and you don't want to load up the whole computer, and you can just do something paper-based.
Perfect. You guys have thought of everything.
That's
Thank
when we
you
call
so
Dr.
much.
Harper.
You guys are amazing.
Thank
you again.
Thank you.
Dr. Griffin, could I ask a quick question? We know that textbooks come with categorical funding. So the state of Florida will give us funding for science textbooks. Can we utilize those dollars for something else in science?
Yeah, the funding comes for instructional materials, and then
Okay.
we decide when and what we want to adopt. So we have flexibility.
So we have the flexibility to go into other textbooks, but we don't have the flexibility to perhaps buy those 19-cent books so the teachers don't have to use their funds?
We could consider doing that. Out of our, I actually just gave Dr. Wyndham the rollover dollars left over from the middle school budget. There's plenty of money there. If these are only 19 cents, and they probably at the back-to-school specials is probably what they are. That's not going to be a problem for us.
Okay. I just don't want to put any undue burdens on our
Right.
teachers to require them to do that. Thanks.
I did ask Ms. Beeman about, can we trademark this? I mean, this is a lot of work that they've done. Of course, a lot of the materials here are borrowed materials, but other districts are grappling with the same thing right now. Like, what part of this do we own? What do we share? And all that. So we'll be having further discussions about that.
And we do have Orange County, Sarasota County, Santa Rosa County, several counties have reached out to me and said, when you're done, I'm like,
Wow,
oh, sure.
that's great.
Yes, they
Make
have.
us do it. And then, yeah, sure, we'll send it. So there is some interest because they're all grappling, like you said, with the same. I won't give it away.
Thank you. I was going to say it, but I kind of felt like
We should do
Exactly.
like
I
the
was being
software
rude,
companies,
but-
$12 per student per year, you know?
oh, higher.
And you still have enough funds for your science projects and any kind of experiments that you need?
Yeah,
with all that?
that's always been good because we do get the FTE funds, I forget the
Perfect.
official name is, but the consumable money is always
Yes.
sufficient. And that's that was a concern of a lot of our teachers. Oh, it's becoming virtual, we're not doing hands-on labs. I was like, no, please keep doing hands-on labs. This is just
Right.
the part you would have read in the book is now on the computer.
They'll
So
drop the pumpkin off the roof. That's what I say. It's an experiment.
Any other questions?
Nice mix. It should not.
Exactly. Love it. I love it. That's awesome.
Thank you
so
so much.
You.
I failed to mention earlier, but if there's anyone here who would like to make public comment to the board, there are forms on the back table that you can fill out and hand to our clerk. And if anybody would like to do that, well, I ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We had no items removed for separate consideration. I think we are up to student discipline hearings. Dr. Griffin?
Correct, Madam Chair. My recommendation is that the School Board of Seminole County approve the student disciplinary recommendations from June 5th, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, this evening for public comment, we have Mr. Alexander Sierra. If you would, please, when you approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, but I'm going to ask Dr. Calderon to read our public input statement.
Good evening. The public input segment of the meeting is provided to allow the public to present specific matters to come before the school board for its consideration and referral to the superintendent and staff for inquiry and action, or address specific items on the agenda. The public input segment of the meeting is not open to presentation of campaign issues by political candidates or others, student disciplinary actions, pending employee disciplinary matters, or pending litigation. You will be allowed 3 minutes to address the board, and we are very thrilled that you've taken the time to come here this evening to discuss your thoughts with us.
Thank you. My name and address, you said?
Yes, please.
Alexander
and if you're
Sierra.
here representing a group, if you would tell us what group you're representing.
My name is Alexander Sierra. My address is 2532 Woodgate Boulevard, Orlando, Florida. And I'm here representing the ACLU. Should I go ahead?
Yes, you have 3 minutes.
Okay. My name is Alexander Sierra, and I'm a chair of the ACLU of Central Florida's LGBT Task Force. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm here in support of both undocumented immigrant students and their families, as well as transgender students. The importance of having clear and public policies on both of these issues cannot be overstated. Florida is home to the third highest undocumented immigrant population in the country. And students should have the right to be engaged participants in their education, not worried that their parents may be deported when picking them up from school. I urge you to join the growing number of Florida County school boards to become a safe zone for undocumented immigrants and their families. In regards to transgender students, it was the public position of Seminole County as of February 2017 to tackle the issue on a case-by-case basis, not really making a statement on the issue in support or opposition. I would like to encourage you to support an anti-discrimination policy which is inclusive of gender identity. In 2016, there was a survey conducted by UCLA which found that Florida is home to the 6th highest transgender population in the nation. That's over 100,000 individuals. While this is already a high number, it doesn't really account for minors. A survey was done of high school students in Wisconsin. That survey consisted of over 18,000 students, which revealed that 1.5% of those students identified themselves as transgender. Here in Seminole County, with enrollment of over 60,000, I'm willing to bet that there is a not insignificant number of trans students, whether or not they make themselves known. Studies have proven again and again that these students are among the most vulnerable and are at a much higher risk of experiencing bullying, harassment, and suicide than their cisgender peers. The National School Boards Association released a guide in addressing this issue which states, quote, "As school leaders, you do your best to provide a safe educational environment for all students and to treat all students with dignity and respect, regardless of a student's sex, sexual orientation, gender identity expression, transgender status, or other characteristics. You should consider your approach to prohibiting discrimination, harassment, or bullying of transgender students as you would for other students with characteristics protected by law or recognized by your school community. To foster a sense of inclusiveness in the school environment, a school board could amend an existing anti-discrimination policy to include transgender students as another protected class. Doing so could assist your efforts to maintain a safe school climate by creating opportunities to raise awareness, to train staff about expectations, and to notify stakeholders of procedures for resolving claims around transgender issues," end quote. Adopting official policy, whether it be about undocumented immigrant students or trans students, can do a few important things. It will provide consistency of expectations and action throughout Seminole County, but most importantly, it will send a message to marginalized students that they are valued and will be kept safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your input. Have anyone else here this evening that would like to address the board?
Madam Chair, can I ask if perhaps the speaker would leave a copy of his comments that we could reread it? Thank you.
Thank you for providing that. We have no more we have no unfinished business to come back before the board. Dr. Griffin, we have some new business.
Mr. Kelly, why don't you work your way up as I read my recommendation? My recommendation is that the School Board of Seminole County approve the advertising of the tentative budget and millage rates for 2017-18. That's on page 354, I believe, of our board books.
Would you like a motion now, or would you prefer to wait?
If we have a motion and a second, then we can discuss.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you. In the book, we're asking you to approve advertising the budget. We have included the budget as we knew the numbers when these materials were prepared. This does not present the budget as it will be finally adopted because we're still developing numbers, and it certainly does not present an entire budget for the district because at this stage, we haven't even hit the end of the fiscal year yet. So what we're requesting is that you allow us to advertise July 23rd, which is a Sunday, in advance of the tentative budget work session, or excuse me, hearing, which will be on the 25th. At recent work session, you asked that we get you a copy of the advertisement prior to being published so you can be prepared for it. We will be submitting it on the July 19th. Last year, we were still making tweaks the day before that, so it may be even the day of, and so we'll send it, if you wouldn't mind, I would prefer to send it to the night we submit it to Orlando Sentinel because it'll be as final as we know how to make the advertisement. So that way it'll give you a few days, and of course we'll be happy to answer any questions you might have about what's being submitted. So as I mentioned earlier, on the 25th, there will be the tentative budget hearing to tentatively adopt the budget, and the budget will be adopted finally on September 5th. A little over 2 months into our budget year. It's a very unusual process we have. Happy to answer any questions.
So can you help me understand why there would be tweaking to an advertisement up to the last minute?
Oh, because sometimes little errors creep into the ad. You know, you check and check and check, and you check one more time. And one year we found an error in transfers. It was a $5 million error. So I really don't like to release that until everybody's checked it a few times because of just the mistakes that occur.
Oh.
The numbers that you're going to put in the advertisement, is that the most current numbers from Tallahassee? Is it guesstimates from Tallahassee?
It will be the most current numbers. By that time, the tax rolls will be certified and required local effort rates will be established. Sometimes there's tweaks on that. So as far as Tallahassee goes, it'll be the most accurate numbers we will see for our budget. In terms of the expenditure side, we'll still be working in, our issue is we're still working in rollover amounts, because when we ask you to approve a budget, we're not just asking you to approve the recurring expenditures, but also the amounts of rollovers that you will allow us to rebudget for purposes. So that latter part's the one that takes us so much time.
It's a long process. I mean, tonight, for those who maybe have not been with us for the past 6 months, it seems like there's been a lot of thought and work and comments and changes based on our input and staff's input. So what seems like a quick process this evening might be, but it's only one step in a million-step journey that we're taking to make the best decisions for our local community. And I think it behooves all of us to reiterate again that we're still #1 in the state with dollars into the classroom. And when we look at this budget that you're presenting for advertisement, there is a large decrease over last year, which I'm sure our citizens would be happy with.
Pointing that out, because I think that's very important, that all of the work sessions and all of the meetings individually with Dr. Griffin and department heads and Mr. Kelly aren't visible. So thank you. That's good.
You work tirelessly, and we really appreciate everything you and your team do. So thank you.
It's truly our pleasure, and to reiterate what Dr. Calderon said, there will be almost a 1 mil decrease in millage, 0.9880 as it stands now. The numbers will be tweaked a little bit, but I think that's close to where we'll land.
It also would be, Dr. Griffin, I don't know if you want to mention that, you know, when everybody saw that that the governor was giving us $100 per student, that maybe we can explain that that's not actually the case for our county.
So the funding formula and the balancing and the disparity, that comes out to $50-some-odd for us.
Right, so it's just the average. So we're not actually receiving anything close to that.
I wish.
Yes, it would be nice.
Another great point of clarification. Very, very true. All right, any other? We have a motion and a second. We've had discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Again, superintendent's report.
Yeah, board members, these are read-only items, the monthly grant report, our facility casualty sanitation fire inspection report, and the foundation bylaws.
Any questions or input on any of that? All right. Are ready to take any comments, committee updates from the board. Mrs. Sanchez.
All right, I'm first. All right, first, I had a chance to go with Dr. Wysong over to Seminole County Virtual School since my last one just graduated, you know, going back and forth between Florida and Seminole Virtual. I learned a lot, and thank you so much, Dr. Wysong, for taking time out of your busy schedule to take me, and Mrs. Camarelli. She was fabulous and spent a lot of time taking me around, and I get to learn a lot about why it's so important to use Seminole County Virtual School and make sure that all of our principals understand the importance and guidance counselors understand how important it is for us to keep the dollars in our county rather than have us go to Florida Virtual. So shame on me because my son took a couple of Florida Virtual School classes, and now I wish he didn't. So I'm going to go ahead and say I'm sorry. And we even have like a guidance program there, and they really work with them a lot. And since we have so many kids that go through the program, everybody has to take one course, but the amount of classes that they have, and right now they have over 602 seniors that went through the course and passed and finished within the time frame to graduate. So I thought that was fascinating. And they have 43 full-time teachers, which none of them want to leave because they love it and they're all fabulous. So they do a remarkable job with that. Then I had my CalNo meeting, which is our meeting with the Council of the Local Government Officials. And we took a tour of the Sanford Museum. And we had our curator, Suzanne, walk us around and handed us a great book about Sanford and all the historical buildings there, and learned a lot about everything in there. So if you have a chance to take a tour of the Sanford Museum, it was a really neat visit. And went to the Great Start program, and we had the record number of students, or parents and students there, or children there. And there were a lot of dads and moms and grandparents and guardians, and it was packed. And the kids were having a ball, and I met so many of them. Some of them were teachers that brought their kids, and they were from everywhere. And some toted all the way from Geneva, Heathrow, Lake Mary, everywhere. So it was really neat. So I want to commend the Great Start program and how much time they spend in putting the program together. It really benefits our children. And then did the Seminole Cultural Arts Council, the Florida Hospital Arts program. We had a lot of students from Seminole County with the Healing Arts program at the Florida Hospital Altamont, and their art was on exhibit, and it was really neat to see a lot of their work, and the kids were there with all their work. And then I'll let the League of Women Voters, but I'll let everybody else do all the rest. Go ahead.
Dr. Calderon.
Oh, okay, great. I'll report first on the committees that I represent this board at your pleasure. The Energy Conservation Task Force met a few weeks ago, and what we found by micromanaging our temperature control in the schools and air conditioning, we're finding different levels of training from our administrators at many of the schools of forgetting to put in, to have the air conditioning put on or shut off, or if they rent the facility out, you know, we charge a certain fee, but then we also charge utilities. But I think we're trying to tighten it up. Like, for example, we know for a fact at one school, they had the air on for 14 hours for a church service. So we are able, with our phenomenal maintenance staff, to kind of micromanage on a different level. So this summer, I'm really thrilled with our new interim director of that area that is going to be giving training to all of our administrators at the school, because I think our administrators are doing what they're supposed to do, micromanaging the standards and quality teaching and instruction, and the other side of the building facilities is sliding through the crack. We're also working with Florida Power and Duke in trying to find any kind of rebates we can, especially with any of the new maintenance and new construction coming in, and they've been really great partners. A few board meetings ago, we did authorize Mr. Rinaldi to have on contract some outside companies to come in and consult, and one of them actually worked with the city of Orlando and Amway Center in lowering all their utility costs. So they're going to be starting that with us. So hopefully we're going to see some great savings on that side. So I have to applaud everybody on that side of the house for working so hard. Also represented this board on the capital improvement committee, and not to beat a dead horse because we went through it with a fine-tooth comb going through our budget process, but I think it's very important to hear the feedback from our principals at the elementary, middle, and high school of how they're supposed to utilize their dollars from that we distribute kind of equally on capital improvement. And there was some healthy discussion on whether, you know, just $1,000 for one school, is that really making an impact? Or is it better if we did perhaps pooling of the money, that if a school really needs to be painted, let's paint that school and then bypass the smaller projects at the other school if it's not a life safety hazard. So I think it was important for everybody to look at how they're spending their dollars. So often I think they've been jumping in and spending all of their dollars on technology, and we know how technology has a very short life cycle, and not only that, but as the years go by, some of the prices of some of the computers are coming down, way down, and now that we know what requirements are needed from the testing standpoint, I'm so thrilled when we heard our science teacher today saying they're actually using technology for instruction, not just testing. So I think we're at that very gray area, and there was some really great healthy discussions between the maintenance side of the house and the instructional side of the house of how best to use those funds. So I'm hopeful we'll get some good suggestions coming up shortly. The insurance committee, I think we're all up to date on that. Our insurance and wellness committee, I'm so excited to have Dawn Bonds come in. Our next meeting she'll be the chairman of that committee. We have some turnover with the SEA as well, and our principals on that committee. So at our next committee meeting, you'll see new faces and hopefully a lot new input. We're working collaboratively with Cigna in trying to get our points for wellness to the best place possible, and you all got the email from Dr. Griffin this week that they're really working with us on the skin cancer, and that's a great opportunity for our employees to get another point by getting their skin cancer checked. So I'm excited I get another point every year.
Competitive.
Yes, not that we're competitive or anything.
Not at all.
But we have to lead by example and show our team members how it's so important to stay healthy so we can be good team members together. But I think the excitement on that committee and working collaboratively with our consultants and our wellness coordinators at each of the schools, I think we're going to see a different face this year on our job sites. So I'm hopeful for that growth as well. I also sit on the Orlando Science Center, as you know, and they gave a great shout out at our last board meeting a few weeks ago to Seminole County Public Schools for allowing them to have the summer camp at Caroline Elementary School. The numbers aren't as large as they had hoped, but you know, the first year of anything is what to be expected, but they were able to scale their staff back. The other thing we did was we welcomed 10 new board members to that board, and one of them happens to be Seminole State College. So we already have the synergy with Seminole State by sharing you as a trustee member, Ms. Lockhart, but I think from a science and technology standpoint, there's a lot more national grants that we can go to collaboratively with the Science Center, Seminole State, and ourselves. So I'm looking forward to even expanding science more than the great presentation that we had tonight. So I think there's more coming down the horizon, and it's really important that we do have a seat at that table to discuss. We haven't had another Zoom meeting yet, but I'll let you know our next one has been postponed because we have our bear project coming in. And as you know, the bears will be coming in totally as an educational purpose within our Central Florida Zoo. So there will be a lot of partnerships with our school district there. The American Cancer Society, I also sit on that board, and just wanted to give a shout out that we have our golf tournament here in Seminole County on September 25th, if anybody'd like to participate. And I'd want to compliment Dr. Griffin for being the keynote speaker at this month's League of Women Voters meeting. It was very well received. There wasn't an empty seat in the House, and I think that's a testament to all our phenomenal educational leaders and teachers that we have such a great story to tell. And it's nice to actually be in a room of people that were asking, what can we help you with legislatively? How can we support your schools? And almost everybody in that room, I think, was a dividend. So it's nice to know that there are so many people that appreciate the quality teaching and learning that's going on in our schools every day. And with that said, I have one other thing that I don't think another board member had attended. As an outgrowth of our community meetings, I know Mr. Godra was involved, but I know Rick Francis as well, with trying to partner with different agencies in Sanford. The Seminole County Sheriff's Office held what would you entitle that, Dr. Griffin? A neighborhood outing in a community.
Community outreach is what they
And they had the health department. We had Great Start there, a pre-K program. There was Hummers, police cars, fire trucks, many other community agencies that could help people in the neighborhood, and the sheriff's office actually cooked and gave everybody free dinner that night, and they showed a movie in the parking lot of a church at night. So it was just a way for people to be out there to say we care. We know it's a long summer, but what was interesting, so many of the children came up, because obviously we were overdressed, but they recognized us from walking into the schools, and they go, "Do you remember me?" So I think it's a testament for them feeling safe to come up to a sheriff officer to say, "Do you remember me?" or any of the educational leaders that were there, because they recognize a caring adult when they see it, and I think that's really going to open up pathways for us in the future.
Okay. Seminole System of Care was the topic for Children's Cabinet of Seminole, and that's a 4-year, $4 million grant. It's all about mental health. The first year, the dollar is matched 1/3 by the Children's Cabinet, and the 4th year for sustainability, it's matched dollar per dollar. I've got a little bit of information I'm going to email out to the board members, and you can read it if you choose to. Congratulations to Wicklow Elementary. They were selected as the elementary school in Seminole County Public Schools to partner with the Dr. Phillips Center for Performing Arts and the Disney Musical for the coming years. That's a very, very big honor for them. Dr. Wyndham, I was in Miami this weekend with family, and there was a reunion in the hotel we were staying in. The Bethune-Cookman Alumni Association had a big reunion. Then I was checking Facebook, and I saw pictures of Dr. Wyndham, and I thought, gosh, she went there. So I said, "Are you in Miami?" And she said, "Yeah, we were the same place." And she stepped out of her comfort zone, and she ran for Miss Bethune-Cookman, and she was the runner-up, and she was Miss Gold. She looked beautiful. So congratulations to you for that. That was very cool. A bunch of folks in Castleberry, I'm not sure who the real lead was, but there's a gentleman named Bill Allen with Mechanics Plus, Castleberry Rotary, some chamber members, many of our SROs and SRDs participated in Take a Kid Fishing. And they had close to 80 children, and they mentored them, they trained them, and then they had them along the water's edge to teach them how to fish, give them fishing equipment, fishing poles and all. I see one of the folks in the back of the room that was there. And the funny thing is, all of a sudden, all these kids went like that to, set their hook and throw it, and everybody was ducking that was an adult. Nobody wanted to get hooked. But thank you for doing that. It was really, really great for those kids. Seminole County Human Trafficking Task Force met. We meet periodically, about every 2 to 3 months. A friend asked me to get involved. It's with our Sheriff's Department. There are some other agencies, FBI, whoever needs to be involved is involved. And, you could be surprised that we have trafficking in Seminole County, and the numbers are relatively low, but we do prosecute folks. And thank goodness, for people like Jay, who chaired it recently, and we have a new chair. And so we're just starting to build new momentum with the new chair. And let's see, I think that's about it for me. Thank you.
So I represented the board at the Commissioner of Education's Business Recognition Awards. We had, so actually I don't even know who it was. Someone in this district nominated the sheriff's office for this recognition. Was it you?
It comes through me, but Dr. Weissong actually made the recommendation.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Actually, it was funny. Sheriff Lima was not able to attend. Something came up at the very last minute. He and I were going to attend together, and he sent Captain Francis in his place, and we sat there at this award ceremony, and at one point, he and I both looked at each other and said, why are we here again? Because we knew he was the sheriff's office was being recognized. We knew what the purpose was because they've been such fabulous partners with us, but we couldn't ever figure out who the culprit was that had actually nominated him. So Jason Weissong, thank you very much. Dr. Griffin, thank you. I would have to say, of all of the districts whose business partners were recognized, of course I'm prejudiced in a good way towards Seminole County, but the sheriff's office and the write-up that was done to talk about the programming was truly a standout among the other communities, and the level of detail, just sitting around our table talking to the other business partners and other school district representatives, listening to Captain Francis explain to them what we do and what the correlation is and how we have an SRD or an SRO at every campus, and that he and Lieutenant Martin are here embedded with us, and that they all kind of looked and they were very perplexed. They really couldn't quite grasp the whole concept. So I see down the road other districts coming and knocking on the sheriff's door and on our door to find out exactly how that worked, because it's such a critical piece of what we do here.
That's another thing we can charge for consultation services.
Hey, we'll take whatever we can get.
Being creative. I also represented the board at the Commission on Homelessness Family Committee. Shelley Lawton is the new director of that organization, and I don't know how new, maybe within the last year. And it became very apparent to her within the course of the last several months that there was no school district representation talking about family homelessness, particularly policy makers. So from Osceola County, Jay Wheeler is serving, and from Orange County, Pam Gould is serving, and then I agreed to serve. The reality is we all realize that we are not the experts as policymakers, how important it is for us to listen to the folks who have the boots on the ground and are actually performing the work with our homeless families. So I asked Amy Elwood and her team if they would be willing to actually do the presentation, because I felt woefully inept. And she did an absolute knockout job. And I always think we're better than everybody else around here anyway. And I apologized for that too, by the way, so that you know, in case you run into anybody in the community, because Dick Batchelor chairs this committee, and there were some other folks from Disney that were there. I started off by recognizing that Seminole County typically tends to retreat from regional things. We kind of do our own thing up here, and we kind of, we know that you all are down here in Orange and Osceola County, but frankly, we just kind of do our thing, and I apologize for that, so you'll be seeing a little bit more from us. But what I learned through the course of the meeting, and after Amy did such a fantastic job with her presentation, is that there's actually a pilot that Disney and I believe another sponsor is funding, and they have invited Orange and Osceola to participate in this pilot. And Seminole County's participation is being a part of the learning community. So they basically want our ideas, and they want to hear from us what's working here in Seminole County, so that they can help to implement it with the pilot that's actually in Orange and Osceola County. And one of the concerns that Amy and I both kind of shared is family homelessness in Seminole County looks a little bit differently than it does in Orange and Osceola. So we're not quite sure how our data and how what we do is going to benefit them necessarily, but we're happy to be a part of the conversation. And if there's any way that we can benefit from it, that would be great.
And I think all of you know Angie from Disney, So I'm having a conversation with her. She'll actually be at the leadership conference. We're going to recognize Disney. So we'll see if we can get engaged and part of that funding.
Yeah. You know, more of our folks' great work and good ideas, and happy to share, but it would be nice to reap some of the benefits too.
Right.
And then I just want to thank the Board of County Commissioners for joining us with our joint work session this last week. It was very time-consuming, a lot of tedious, in-the-weeds conversation that we got into, and all it did for me was really solidify the fact that we need to make sure that we're having ongoing conversations with them, elected official to elected official, on a somewhat regular basis, because I think the more we rely, even though we know all of our staffs understand these issues and they separately discuss them, sometimes things don't always filter to us. And so that was my takeaway, is that we need to make a concerted effort at continuing to build those relationships and have those ongoing open conversations. But I think we had a good conversation, and looking forward to our follow-ups.
Is there any way, I know our clerk has worked tirelessly to try to schedule one meeting, but I think it might be more beneficial for the two bodies to meet perhaps twice a year instead of once a year, because there are so many things changing, especially this is a unique year because of session, the timing of session, and how it hits our fiscal year, and I think there's going to be a lot of more collaboration in the future, and rather than rely on one-on-one conversations, I wouldn't mind meeting twice a year. I don't know what the pleasure of the rest of the board would be.
I think we can certainly survey them on that. Jill has already done an incredible job working with Shaney Beach at the county manager's office to schedule all of the follow-ups that we had talked about doing. So those are scheduled now, and Dr. Griffin and I will be following up with each of them individually. So hopefully that'll be a good opportunity for us to kind of feel that out and see if that's something that they would be open to. More conversation and communication is always better.
Right.
Right? So anything we can do, I think, would be good. Typically, what I think Jill has found when she reaches out is the response is, well, what do they want to talk about? like we're kind of annoying them. Like, well, what could they possibly have to talk about? So we'll have to do a better job of explaining all of the things that we do that really are affecting one another.
And I would love to hear a little bit from them, some of their initiatives. I really find out secondhand most of the time. I would love to hear some of their things. They have a lot going on. I saw the naming of the park. I didn't even know about that. The naming of the sports complex. So I think it really could be some good two-sided conversation. Yeah.
I have nothing else. Does anyone?
Madam Chair, could I make one request of Dr. Griffin, if you don't mind? I'm sure many of you have seen in the news over the past few weeks, unfortunately, there's been some tragic drownings, which seem to occur usually during the summer. And I think this board was pretty bold, I think it was 2 years ago, when we came out with the bacteria in the water, because anything that affects children, chances are most of them are our children in the school, and we have to treat it holistically. And I know there's a great free program, Josh the Baby Otter, that is geared for pre-K, kindergarten, early childhood. And I, for one, was paranoid, so I had both of my children swimming before they could even walk. And that's just what I feel you need to do in the state of Florida. So I don't know if this is something that, if you could pass it through your staff, if this is something we could bring in through some of those classes. Obviously, I know there are other school districts, and I think Osceola is one of them, that they actually bus their children for swimming lessons. You know, that I think is an investment, at least at this time, without sponsors, that we don't want to go that far to. But I'd hate to have 20/20 hindsight and ever lose a child to drowning. So if there's anything we can proactively do, I know Kelly Whitmore, who taught both of my children to swim, you know, is here active in the community.
I had the opportunity to have a short conversation with them, and Josh is named after Joshua Collingsworth. He's a toddler who drowned, and the family has a very touching, very emotional video to watch. But at the end of the day, they want to make good out of this, and they have created a large foundation that a lot of the Rotaries are getting behind and so on. So they selected the otter because if you think of how an otter swims, they swim on their back, and that's exactly how they teach the infants and the toddlers. First, if they fall in, what to do. So I applaud you for that, Dr. Calderon. I would love for us, I already mentioned it to pre-K and extended day, because part of it is not just the swimming lessons, it's the awareness.
Right.
So and that's what really this is about, is awareness, and then connecting if the people want swimming lessons. But I think that we have many children in Seminole County who don't know how to swim and don't understand the importance. I can remember when Sanford Rec, when I was principal at Seminole, they would rent the pool at Seminole High School. It was very scary because a lot of the kids could not swim. They would get out of the bus all excited, and guess what they would do? They'd jump in the pool. And I cannot tell you how many times they were pulling kids out and stopping it. And Mr. Goddard remembers I actually gave the swim team some community service hours just so I had an extra 20 bodies out there to keep an eye on the kids, because a lot of those kids could not swim. So I think this is a good way for us to start, really good people behind this. And the awareness goes a long way. So I'd be happy to do that.
Because I think it's larger than swimming pools. Florida is blessed now that we finally had rain. We have a lot of canals and lakes and ponds, and I know even for the final exam of the swimming test, they purposely would wrap the children up in cords and to give a hazard of like the kudzu in the water or anything else to
the
be
research,
able to escape.
Parents are more distracted than ever. You know all the reasons, the iPhones and so on. And what I've learned is that when a toddler or a young child drowns, it's silent. It's not like you think of in the movies with the splashing and the screaming. They fall to the bottom of the pool and they drowned. So this is a lot, but people cannot be on their phones when their kids are by their pools or when they take them fishing and all of those things. There's a lot of education for adults as well as for our children. So I'd be happy to learn more about that and bring some information back.
Yeah, and I also was looking at a program, Rowdy Gaines, I'm not sure if you're aware of him. He has a program that he does as well, and he had met my sister in South Florida because they do a program down there, and they do transportation, the whole 9 yards, and he was a gold Olympic medalist, and he had contacted me last week, ironically.
Why here in Lake Mary?
Yes, and he does different things like that, and wanted to be more involved in helping out as well.
And I thought of one more thing, and actually this is where I thought you were going initially. It became apparent that through our impact fee discussion with the Board of County Commissioners, that if there is a way that we could simplify our communication about what educational impact fees are and what they aren't, and I don't know if this is something that Michael Lawrence and his team could help us with, but something that's a graphic representation. And I'm talking out loud like I know what this is going to look like, but I think we have some misinformation and some misperception about who is impacted by impact fees and what they're used for. And I just think if we're asking the Board of County Commissioners to make some changes, if we can help them with that communication process ahead of time, in some way to be able to communicate this, because it is a very complicated topic and there's a lot of opportunity for misunderstandings and for misrepresentations.
Right.
Are you all, would you be okay with doing that?
Absolutely.
Definitely. All right, anything else? All right, then I will call the meeting adjourned at 7:02.
Go Gators.
What time is the game?